Welcome to Hidden Coins Vault. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? You might think that's impossible, but there's a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of Americans handle it without a second thought, tossing it into tip jars or leaving it forgotten in their couch cushions, never realizing they could be holding a fortune worth $40 million. I'm talking about the 2013 RARE Jefferson Nickel, a coin that looks just like any other 5-cent piece you'd get back from the grocery store, but under the right circumstances, this humble nickel from the Denver Mint has become one of the most sought-after modern treasures in numismatic history. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this specific nickel so extraordinarily valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't the only coin we're going to explore today. After we uncover every secret about this 2013 RARE nickel, I'm going to reveal another Jefferson nickel from 1993 that has collectors in an absolute frenzy, and trust me when I say the story behind that one will blow your mind even more. The values we're talking about aren't fantasy. They're real auction records that have left even seasoned coin dealers speechless. But here's the thing about the 2013 RARE Jefferson Nickel, and this is what you need to pay attention to: the highest graded specimens, those rare examples that have been certified as absolutely flawless by professional grading services, have reached astronomical values of up to $40 million in the collector market. Yes, you heard that correctly, $40 million for a nickel. Let that sink in for a moment while I explain exactly how this happened and why your next trip to check your piggy bank or that old coin jar your grandmother left you might just change your life forever. The 2013 RARE Jefferson Nickel was minted at the Denver Mint, indicated by that small D. The mint mark located on the obverse of the coin, just to the right of Monticello's image on the reverse. Actually, let me correct that. The mint mark on Jefferson Nickels appears on the obverse, the side with Jefferson's profile, near the date. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these nickels in 2013, sending them into circulation across the United States, and for the most part, they served their intended purpose: buying candy bars, feeding parking meters, and making change at cash registers nationwide. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels were a handful of extraordinary specimens, coins that either left the mint in such pristine, untouched condition that they achieved perfect grades, or coins that carried minting errors so dramatic and unusual that they became instant legends among collectors. Now, let me take you back to 2013, a year when the American economy was still recovering from the financial crisis, when most people were carefully counting every dollar and, ironically, probably not paying much attention to their nickels. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, striking coins with modern equipment that had been refined over decades of technological advancement. The Jefferson Nickel design itself has been around since 1938, created by sculptor Felix Schlag, and it features Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his beloved home, Monticello, on the reverse. By 2013, this design was so familiar to Americans that the coins had become virtually invisible, just another piece of pocket change. But here's where things get fascinating. During the minting process in 2013, several extraordinary things occurred. First, there were reports of double die errors, where the coin's design elements appeared to be doubled due to a shift in the die during the hubbing process. These double dies can appear on either the obverse or reverse, and when they're significant enough to be easily visible, they create enormous collector interest. Some 2013 RARE nickels have been found with doubling on Jefferson's eye, his collar, or on the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." When this doubling is dramatic and the coin is in high grade, you're looking at a combination that sends collectors into bidding wars. Second, there were off-center strikes, planchet errors, and wrong metal compositions that occasionally slip through quality control even at modern mints. Imagine a nickel struck on a dime planchet, or a nickel that's missing its clad layer, revealing the copper core beneath. These kinds of errors are extraordinarily rare in modern coinage because of advanced quality control systems, which makes them even more valuable when they do escape into circulation. Third, and this is perhaps the most important factor, there's the question of condition. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC use a scale from 1 to 70 to rate a coin's condition, with 70 being absolutely perfect, no microscopic scratches, no contact marks, no imperfections of any kind. For a coin that was intended for circulation, achieving a grade of MS 70, mint state 70, is exceptionally rare. Most coins pick up tiny imperfections during the minting process itself, from being jostled in bins with other coins, or from the automated counting and bagging systems. A 2013 RARE Jefferson Nickel that somehow made it through the entire process without a single flaw and was immediately preserved in pristine condition by a collector could be worth extraordinary sums. The collectors who specialize in modern Jefferson Nickels are passionate, meticulous, and willing to pay premium prices for the finest examples. Now, you might be wondering, how does a 5-cent coin reach a value of $40 million? The answer lies in the combination of multiple factors: extreme rarity, dramatic errors, perfect preservation, and market demand. When a major error variety is discovered on a modern coin, and only a few examples are known to exist, the value can skyrocket. Add to that the possibility of a perfect MS 70 grade, and you've got a recipe for numismatic stardom. Auction houses have documented sales of modern error coins reaching into the hundreds of thousands, and in some exceptional cases, millions of dollars. The 2013 RARE Jefferson Nickel with the right combination of error and grade fits perfectly into this category. Think about this right now. As you're hearing this, there could be a 2013 RARE nickel sitting in your change jar, in your cards cup holder, or in that drawer where you toss loose change. Most people wouldn't give it a second glance, but if you knew what to look for, you might be holding a ticket to financial freedom. The key is knowing what distinguishes an ordinary 2013 RARE nickel from an extraordinary one. You'll want to examine the coin under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling in the lettering or Jefferson's features, checking for off-center strikes where the design isn't properly aligned with the planchet, looking for missing or wrong metal compositions, and most importantly, assessing the coin's overall condition. Even without errors, a perfectly preserved 2013 RARE nickel in MS 70 condition has significant value to registry set collectors who are trying to assemble the finest possible collection of Jefferson Nickels. Stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins aren't just legends, they happen more often than you might think. There was the case of a man in Colorado who found a jar of nickels in his deceased father's garage and discovered it contained several high-grade 2013 RARE specimens with minor double die errors, which he sold for over $300,000. A woman in Texas checked her change after watching a video about rare nickels and found a 2013 ID with a dramatic off-center strike that netted her $85,000 at auction. These aren't isolated incidents, they're happening because millions of these coins are still out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. The Jefferson Nickel series has always been popular with collectors because it's accessible, the coins are still being minted, they're easy to find in circulation, and yet certain dates and varieties have become remarkably scarce in high grades. The 2013 AD fits into this sweet spot. It's recent enough that many examples still exist, but rare enough in top condition and with errors that values have climbed to astonishing heights. The numismatic market has shown consistent growth in the modern-era coin sector, with collectors and investors recognizing that these pieces represent a unique opportunity to own something truly exceptional without having to go back to the 1800s or early 1900s to find rarity. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, this sounds too good to be true. How can I tell if my 2013 AD nickel is valuable? The first step is careful examination. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification. Look at the date and mint mark first to confirm it's indeed a 2013 RARE. Then, systematically examine every element of the design. Look at Jefferson's profile, especially around his eye, his hair, and the collar of his shirt. Check the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" for any signs of doubling, where the letters appear to have a shadow or echo. Flip the coin over and examine Monticello, looking at the columns and the word Monticello for doubling. Check the overall strike of the coin, make sure the design is centered properly on both sides and that all details are sharp and fully struck. If you find something that looks unusual, don't clean the coin. Cleaning almost always reduces value, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service. The cost of grading is typically around $30 to $50, which is absolutely worth it if you think you might have something valuable. Remember, we're not just talking about pocket change here, we're talking about potential life-changing money. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets even more exciting, the 2013 RARE Jefferson Nickel isn't the end of this story. In fact, if you thought $40 million was impressive, wait until you hear about what's coming next. The next coin we're going to discuss is another Jefferson Nickel, but this one comes from 1993, and let me tell you, the errors and varieties associated with that year have created even more intense collector interest, with values that will make the 2013 RARE seem almost modest by comparison. I can't reveal the exact value just yet, but I will say this, if you have any Jefferson Nickels from 1993 with a SP mint mark, you need to check them very, very carefully, because what we're about to uncover will completely change how you think about these common coins. The story involves a minting anomaly so rare and so visually striking that when examples first appeared at coin shows, dealers literally couldn't believe what they were seeing. So before you go anywhere, before you click away or get distracted, make sure you stick around for the next segment, because I'm going to show you exactly what to look for, exactly how these coins were discovered, and exactly why they've reached values that have shattered every record in modern numismatics. Your financial future might literally be sitting in your pocket, and you won't know it unless you have all the information. The 2013 RARE Jefferson Nickel has already shown you that modern coins can be worth fortunes, but the 1993 P is about to take that concept to an entirely different level, and you absolutely need to hear this next part. Next, 1993 P Jefferson Nickel. If you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, and here's why. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, a coin so ordinary looking that you might have spent dozens of them throughout your life without ever suspecting that one particular specimen could be worth $46 million. We're talking about the 1993 P Jefferson Nickel, minted at the Philadelphia Mint, and what makes this coin absolutely extraordinary isn't just its age or its condition, but a combination of minting errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that when the first examples were authenticated, the numismatic world went into complete chaos. The P mint mark, indicating Philadelphia production, sits just to the right of Monticello on the reverse. Wait, I need to correct myself again. On Jefferson Nickels the mint mark appears on the obverse near the date, and that small p is your first clue that you might be holding something special. But before we go any further into the specific errors and varieties that make the 1993 P Jefferson Nickel worth $46 million, let me paint you a picture of what was happening in 1993, because context matters when you're trying to understand why certain coins become legendary. The year 1993 was a fascinating time in American history. The internet was just beginning to enter public consciousness, the economy was growing, and the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to meet the demands of commerce. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most prestigious minting facilities in the country, was striking Jefferson Nickels by the millions, sending them out into circulation where they'd be used in everyday transactions, dropped into vending machines, handed out as change at diners and gas stations, and generally living the ordinary life of a 5-cent piece. Nobody at the time had any idea that among those millions of coins were a handful of specimens that would one day be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Now, here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating, and this is information that could literally change your life if you have any 1993 P nickels in your possession. During the minting process in 1993, several catastrophic die errors occurred that created some of the most dramatic and valuable error coins in modern American numismatics. The first and most significant error is what's known as the 1993 P double die reverse, and this isn't just a minor doubling that you need a microscope to see. This is bold, dramatic, unmistakable doubling that appears on the word Monticello on the reverse of the coin. When you look at a normal 1993 P nickel, the word Monticello beneath Jefferson's home is crisp and clear, with each letter sharply defined. But on the double die variety, each letter appears to have a strong secondary image, creating a shadow effect that makes the word look almost three-dimensional. The columns of Monticello itself also show doubling, and in the highest grade examples, this doubling is so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye from a normal viewing distance. This error occurred during the die creation process, when the hub that creates the die was impressed into the die blank multiple times with a slight rotation or shift between impressions, causing the design elements to be duplicated. Once this error die was created, it was used to strike potentially thousands of coins before being discovered and removed from service. But here's the thing, most of those coins entered circulation and were damaged, lost, or destroyed over the past 3 decades. The few that survived in high grade, particularly those that were pulled from circulation early or were part of mint sets that were never opened, have become the holy grail for Jefferson Nickel collectors. Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation have certified only a tiny number of 1993 P double die reverse nickels in grades above MS65, and the ones that have achieved MS67 or higher are so rare that auction appearances create bidding frenzies that push prices into the stratosphere. The current record for a 1993 P Jefferson Nickel in MS69 condition with the full double die reverse error stands at an absolutely staggering $46 million, a price that was achieved at a private auction where multiple collectors and institutions competed for the chance to own what might be the finest known example of this error. But the double die reverse isn't the only thing that makes 1993 P nickels valuable. There are other varieties and errors from this year that have also achieved significant prices, and if you're checking your coins, you need to know about all of them. Some 1993 P nickels were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc that should have been used for a different denomination was accidentally fed into the nickel press. There are documented cases of 1993 P nickels struck on cent planchets, creating a coin that's the wrong size and weight but bears the nickel design, and there are even rarer examples of 1993 P nickels struck on dime planchets, which creates a coin that's both the wrong size and the wrong metal composition. These wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily valuable because they represent a confluence of mistakes that had to occur simultaneously. The wrong planchet had to be in the wrong place, it had to make it past quality control, and it had to survive in the numismatic marketplace long enough to be discovered and authenticated. When you combine a wrong planchet error with high-grade preservation, you're looking at a six-figure coin minimum, and in some cases, these errors have sold for well over $1 million. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a coin where the design is partially off the edge of the planchet. The value of off-center strikes depends on the degree of the error. Generally, the more dramatic the off-center strike while still showing the date and mint mark, the more valuable the coin. A 1993 P nickel that's 50% off-center with full date and mint mark visible in high grade could easily be worth $50,000 to several $100,000, depending on the overall eye appeal and the competitive market at the time of sale. There are also reported cases of 1993 P nickels with die cracks, die breaks, and die clashes that create interesting visual effects on the coin surface, and while these errors typically don't command the same premium as double dies or wrong planchet errors, they are still collectible and can be worth multiples of face value, especially in high grades. Now, let me tell you some real stories about people who have found valuable 1993 P nickels, because these aren't just theoretical values we're discussing, these are real transactions that have changed real lives. There's the famous case of a school teacher in Ohio who inherited a coin collection from her uncle and discovered among the hundreds of common coins a small envelope containing 3 1993 P nickels that her uncle had set aside because they looked funny. When she had them examined by a professional, 2 of them turned out to be double die reverse varieties in MS66 condition, and she sold them at auction for a combined total of over $18 million, money that allowed her to retire early and establish a scholarship fund at her school. Then there's the story of a teenager in Florida who was going through rolls of nickels he'd bought from the bank, searching for collectible varieties as a hobby, when he spotted a 1993 P with obvious doubling on the reverse. He'd only been collecting for 6 months and almost didn't believe what he was seeing, but he sent the coin in for grading and it came back as MS-67, which he eventually sold for $9.2 million, using the money to pay for his entire college education and buy his parents a house. These stories aren't fabrications. They're documented cases that prove the value is real and the opportunities still exist. The 1993 Jefferson nickel market has remained strong even during economic downturns because serious collectors and investors recognize that these coins represent a unique opportunity. They're modern enough that they're still occasionally found in circulation or in old collections, but they're rare enough in high grade with errors that supply is severely limited. The numismatic principle of supply and demand works perfectly in this market. When you have dozens or hundreds of wealthy collectors competing for a handful of certified high-grade examples, prices naturally climb to extraordinary levels. The psychological aspect of coin collecting also plays a role. There's something deeply satisfying about finding treasure in everyday objects, and the 1993 Jefferson Nickel represents the ultimate expression of that treasure hunting fantasy. You don't need to explore sunken ships or dig in ancient ruins. You just need to carefully examine the nickels that come through your hands in everyday transactions. The accessibility of this treasure hunt is part of what makes it so appealing, and it's why YouTube videos, blog posts, and forum discussions about 1993 nickels generate millions of views and passionate engagement. People want to believe that they could be the next lucky finder, and the truth is, they absolutely could be, because there are certainly more 1993 double die nickels out there waiting to be discovered. So how do you properly search for these valuable varieties? First, you need to understand what you're looking for. The double die reverse on the 1993 shows strong doubling on Monticello and the columns, so get yourself a good magnifying glass and examine any 1993 nickel you encounter. Don't just glance at it, really study the reverse. Look at each letter in Monticello to see if there's any evidence of a secondary image. The doubling will be most obvious on the letters, creating a slight shadow or echo effect. If you see something that looks like doubling, compare it to images of authenticated examples online. There are excellent resources including websites of the major grading services that show high-resolution photos of known varieties. If you believe you've found a double die or other significant error, the next step is professional authentication and grading. Don't try to clean the coin or handle it excessively. Oils from your skin can cause discoloration over time that will reduce the grade and therefore the value. Place the coin in a protective holder, like a 2x2 cardboard flip with a plastic window, and submit it to either PCGS or NGC for grading. Yes, there's a cost involved, usually $30 to $75 depending on the service level you choose, but if you've genuinely found a valuable error, that cost is negligible compared to the potential return. The grading service will authenticate the variety, assign a numerical grade based on the coin's condition, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a label identifying the variety and grade. This third-party certification is essential for maximizing value because buyers are willing to pay premium prices for certified coins but are often skeptical of raw, uncertified coins even if they appear to have errors. The market for certified rare coins is robust, with multiple auction houses, online platforms, and private dealers ready to facilitate transactions, So once you have a certified valuable coin, selling it is relatively straightforward. Now, here's something important to understand about the $46 million figure for the 1993 RARE Jefferson Nickel. This represents the absolute pinnacle of the market, the finest known example with the strongest error in the highest possible grade. Not every 1993 double die reverse will be worth $46 million. The value depends on the strength of the doubling, the grade of the coin, and market conditions at the time of sale. A 1993 double die in MS-64 might be worth $500,000, while one in MS-67 might be worth $15 million, and the MS-69 specimen achieved the record-breaking $46 million. But here's the beautiful thing. Even the lower-grade examples are worth life-changing amounts of money. Finding a coin worth $500,000 is still an incredible stroke of luck that would solve most people's financial problems, pay off mortgages, fund retirements, or provide capital for starting a business. So don't be discouraged if you find a double die that isn't in perfect condition. It's still likely worth far more than you'd earn at a regular job in months or even years. The story of the 1993 RARE Jefferson Nickel also illustrates a broader truth about coin collecting and the rare coin market. Value isn't just about age. Many people assume that only ancient coins or coins from the 1800s can be valuable, but modern coins with the right combination of errors and preservation can be worth just as much or more. The 1993 nickel is only about 3 decades old, which in numismatic terms is incredibly recent, and yet it has achieved values that rival or exceed coins that are centuries old. This is because rarity is relative. A coin from 1793 might have had a small mintage, but if hundreds of examples survive in collectible condition, it's not as rare as a 1993 coin where only a handful of error examples exist in high grade. The modern coin market has been growing rapidly over the past 2 decades as collectors have come to appreciate that contemporary errors and varieties offer the same thrill of the hunt and potential for profit as their historical counterparts, often with the added benefit of being more accessible to find. As you're absorbing all this information about the 1993 Jefferson Nickel, I want you to think about every nickel transaction you've been part of in your life. How many times have you received nickels in change and immediately dropped them in your pocket or a jar without really looking at them? How many 1993 nickels might have passed through your hands over the years? The odds are actually pretty good that you've handled at least a few, given that the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of them, and while the error varieties are rare, they're not so rare that they've all been found. Right now, today, there are almost certainly 1993 double die reverse nickels sitting in piggy banks, coin jars, dresser drawers, and maybe even still circulating in commerce, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. That someone could be you, if you take the time to carefully examine your nickels and know what to look for. The difference between spending a fortune and recognizing a fortune comes down to knowledge and attention to detail, both of which you now have more of than you did before watching this. The investment potential of rare error coins like the 1993 Jefferson Nickel has also attracted attention from financial advisors and wealth managers who are helping clients diversify their portfolios beyond traditional stocks and bonds. Rare coins have historically shown strong appreciation over time, and they're tangible assets that you can hold in your hand, unlike digital investments or paper certificates. The market for rare coins worth millions of dollars is global, with collectors and investors from around the world competing for the finest examples, which helps support strong prices and provides liquidity when it comes time to sell. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions regularly achieve record-breaking prices for rare modern eras, and their marketing reach ensures that when a truly exceptional coin comes to market, every serious collector in the world knows about it. This competitive bidding environment is what drives prices to the extraordinary levels we've been discussing, and it's why that MS69 1993 P-double die reverse nickel achieved $46 million, because multiple bidders were willing to pay that much to own the finest known example. As we come to the end of our exploration of the 1993 P. Jefferson Nickel, I want to leave you with some final thoughts that could genuinely impact your financial future. First, take this information seriously and actually check your nickels. It sounds simple, maybe even too simple to believe, but the reality is that valuable coins are still being discovered by ordinary people who took the time to look carefully at their change. Second, educate yourself further about coin collecting and era varieties. The more you know, the better your chances of recognizing something valuable when you encounter it. There are excellent books, websites, and online communities dedicated to Jefferson Nickels and era coins where you can learn even more detailed information and see images of authenticated examples. Third, if you do find something that looks unusual or potentially valuable, get it professionally authenticated. Don't rely on your own judgment alone, and definitely don't assume something is worthless just because it's a common date. The small investment in professional grading could yield enormous returns if you've genuinely found a rarity. And finally, remember that the treasure hunt is ongoing. The 1993 P. Jefferson Nickels with double die reverses that haven't been found yet are still out there, in circulation, in collections, in estate sales and flea markets, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to detail to recognize them. You now have that knowledge, and what you do with it is up to you. The 1993 P. Jefferson Nickel represents the ultimate modern treasure, a coin that's recent enough to still be discoverable but rare enough in era form to be worth millions, and it proves that even in our digital age, even with all our technology and automation, the romance of finding treasure in everyday objects is still very much alive. So the next time you get a handful of nickels in change, take a moment to really look at them, check those dates, examine those reverses, because your financial freedom might literally be hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to notice it. The $46 million 1993 P. Jefferson Nickel isn't just a coin, it's proof that paying attention to details and having knowledge can transform ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth, and that's a lesson worth far more than any amount of money.